baby. Let's get back at. Oh, oh, uh, all right, let's continue where we left off, shall we? I don't quite remember where I was or what I was talking about. However, I do remember that I'm making a tree of some sorts. And I think I'm gonna cave it in one more here, kind of like that. Yeah. Oh fuck. I forgot this is what I have to do. I have to like. Oh, this is gonna suck.
Ugh, this is gonna suck, dude.
Um. Yeah. Stop this. Well, yeah. Anyway, gone for a while. Haven't been uploading at all that much. Um.
Not that anyone cares.
But yeah. Just been busy doing stuff. Yeah, that's probably good. I could probably start building it up on this one. But yeah. I don't know when this is gonna go out, but have you guys seen that subliminal game? Yeah, that shit looks terrible. Everyone that I've seen play it say it looks or that it's like bad. It's like what is Poppy Playtime, uh, which apparently was also really bad. And so I looked into it a little bit, and it appears that the reason why they're so bad is mostly because of it's mostly because it seems like the chase sequences and like the mascots they have just seem to be really just obnoxious to deal with and play. I think it's the trial and error. But it's always been interesting to me, like what makes a horror game scary, or like what creates tension or what makes you feel on edge, and I think that with games like Poppy Playtime or like Mascot Horror, or I guess most recently with the Subliminal game, is that it falls into these kind of traps of like just not being very good because there seems to be a lot of sacrificing actual tension and horror for kind of cheap chase sequences or scares or you know because it seems like they try to contrast a very kind of kid-friendly environment with horror, which can be a very effective tool for horror, but they just kind of misuse it in a way that it's not as effective. It's not as scary. I don't know if you guys ever played the Amnesia: The Dark Descent, but I'm sure you know of it, especially if you've been on YouTube for a long time. That was the oh my god, that was a game that went around a lot in the OG YouTube days, 2012 YouTube, where people would sit down and do let's plays of it and stuff like that. But the thing is I think Amnesia is a very very scary horror game. It's one of the creepiest, and I think it's because of the way that it builds tension and the way that it maintains it. It has a lot of systems in place to maintain tension and still throw things at you that will catch you off guard, and it's not the same kind of thing over and over again. What I noticed with the mascot horror, the Poppy Playtime esque video games, is that they present themselves as very deep, multi-dimensional kind of horror games with fun mechanics and puzzles and whatnot, but it ends up being very one note, the horror, and so then it turns into more about the puzzles, but the puzzles aren't really all that good. They're kind of half baked, or they're not very fluid or well thought out. Um, Typically, sometimes they're dude, I'm saying something over here, and you come up over here trying to kill me, dude. They'll never learn. They'll never learn. It's like you're burning alive, and you want to your last thing that you want to do is take a bite out of me. Like, grow up. Anyway, enough about zombies and their immaturity. Uh, but yeah, the puzzles I think tend to be. Can a man not just talk about like horror game design without getting jumped? Huh? Is it such a problem? God, bro, leave me alone. They're trying to get me, dude. They're trying to stop me from speaking my truth. Um. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, I was saying that Amnesia is a scary game because of the way that it. They were really smart in trying to make the game scary, not just trying to make the game a spectacle. I think that's really the main highlight of these horror games is that they try to create spectacle, and that's the most important aspect of them. It seems is that as long as it looks crazy or looks cool, then that's a good horror game, right? It's all about like how it looks, you know. Because with Subliminal, that's what was one of the biggest selling points of the game is how realistic it looked, how like whoa, you know. And there were some moments in the demo, I think that I saw the demo, and there were some moments where if you kind of took a still shot and then if you glanced at it, you could mistake it for it being real life. You know what I mean? You would have to take a double take and be like, wait a minute, oh, okay, that's a video game. I almost thought that was real for a second, right? Because it really does look that good. Um, it's very well done, the graphics and the lighting and all that stuff. But I think that's what people expected was a more of a backrooms exploration game. At least that was the consensus. I mean, that's what I thought when I saw the demo. I thought it was going to be a really cool kind of like the Complex Expedition. It's like that game where like the graphics look pretty realistic, and you're just kind of walking around the back rooms, and there's not really a threat, but there is something there, right? And that keeps you on your toes, right? So even though nothing really happens, the whole time you're kind of stressed because you're worried about something happening. Especially because I think it's a nice contrast to what kind of horror games, especially backrooms games that have been coming out, because they've also been kind of leaning in onto the spectacle side of the horror game genre, where the monsters have to be crazy and they have to be fast and they have to be loud and they have to be screaming at you, and you don't give up, do you? You really don't have any brakes on you, huh? Look at you. Look at you. Look at what you're doing, man. This is an intervention. Okay, we need to talk about this right now. We need to talk about this right now. It was too late. He succumbed to his addiction. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, no, so it like you've seen it. You've seen the backrooms games where it's just a bunch of slop, you know? It's like, you load into the backrooms and you're like, "Ooh, wow, this is creepy and kind of cool and weird looking." And then there's like 16 million monsters going and they're like chasing you down a hallway, and you have to run like Mach 10, and you're like, "Okay, well, all of the tension is gone after that point, because not only do you know what the threat looks like, but you're also able to like when you die to it, the mystery of what happens is now gone because you've already lost to the threat. You know what the worst that can happen is, right? And that just rips all of the tension and the build up just completely out of the game. And so it doesn't feel, it starts to not feel like a horror game. It starts to feel more just like a challenging like Bennett Foddy type game where you're just dragging your balls through glass because it's a challenge, right? Even though it's not like a good challenge, it's just like watch this guy drag his balls through a mile of broken glass, just to see if he could do it. That's kind of what the game's turned into. And I kind of blame Five Nights at Freddy's for that, because I think Five Nights at Freddy's was like, game wise, it was like all right, it wasn't anything crazy, because mostly what that game was the atmosphere. It was the build up, the slow build, the like but once you get jump scared, it's whatever. Who cares? At that point, if you die, it's more frustrating than anything because you're like, oh my god, of course I didn't I didn't close the right door, and Freddy came and uh absolutely ruined me. Um, but it and it's like that's kind of like where it kind of started too is with Five Nights at Freddy's. Um, being mysterious and cool, and then gameplay wise it not really mattering. But then they tried to make gameplay matter, and then they just couldn't do it. Like the other mascot horror games, kind of like Hello Neighbor, like they had no fucking idea what to do with their own IP. They were like, okay, we got mystery, we got intrigue, we got a lot of people who are really excited and into it. What do we do now? And they just floundered. They didn't really know what to do. And it seems like the same thing with Poppy Playtime, where once they had something that worked, they were like, "Oh my god, lightning in a bottle! We can't let it out. We can't let it out. We just have to keep, trying to redo the exact same voodoo ritual to make the exact same game, 7 times in a row or whatever." But the reason why I think the chase sequences, for example, and whatnot, were so frustrating to play against and annoying to do is not only because it's frustrating, but it, like I said, it rips out all the tension, it rips out all the horror. It's no longer engaging. You're no longer worried about like dying because you've already experienced what the worst can happen is. Right, and it's going to be the same thing over and over again. It starts being predictable. The reason why I think Amnesia: The Dark Descent is so scary comparatively is because there's a lot of things that you could argue would make the game easier or, I guess, forgiving. But that forgiveness is kind of what makes the tension greater, and doesn't bore you as easily in a way. Like for example, like when you do a chase sequence in one of these mascot horror games, you get hunted down in a hallway, and it's always confusing and winding. There's different routes to go. Some are wrong, some are right. You have to do mechanics on the fly, even if you just learn them. You just have to figure it out as you go, and then if you fail, you restart. Right, but it's the same track every time, so you know exactly where they're going. It's all scripted, and it eventually it's not scary to have to fully optimize something. You know what I mean? It's not scary. Eventually it just becomes either fun or really annoying. And it can't really be fun when it's a scripted event if you're trying to optimize it. Unless your intention is speed running, which even then I feel like you might get frustrated, because it might suck. You're like, oh, this is a terrible part of the speed run, But yeah, it's just not super engaging to just do the same thing over and over again and have to trial and error it and whatnot. With Amnesia, there's a couple things that make the game so terrifying comparatively to most games nowadays. And that is that for the first 40 minutes of the game, you don't see the enemy at all. You don't see any threats. There's not really any threats going around. There's nothing really, pressing you. It's really just kind of exploring, getting used to the mechanics, and that's pretty much all that's going on. Is you just running around trying to figure out how to do some puzzles, trying to maneuver your way through the castle. So then when the enemy comes out, it's very startling and it catches you very off guard because you weren't expecting it, because you didn't know what to expect and you didn't know when to expect it. Even if you knew there was something looming around the corner, you didn't know which corner or when, right? Because at that point, you've settled in for about almost an hour, and you probably even forgot that there was a monster at that point. Whereas in the mascot horror games, they only do that for 10 minutes maybe, and even then they tease it anyway and make it really obvious what is probably going to kill you. Like in Poppy Playtime, the first one, the first thing you see is the literal threat of the entire game. You just see him. It's no big deal. And you look at him and you think, oh, I wonder if that thing's going to probably chase me and hunt me down. It seems kind of obvious. He's on a pedestal and he's sitting there. Now, it can be scary when you come back and he's gone. Then you're like, ooh, where is he? Where is he going to appear? But you already know the threat. You've already seen him. Now you're just waiting for him to come at you. And then once he comes at you, after the first time he comes at you, you don't care. You know? You're like, okay, that was all right at first. But then after the fact, you're like, yeah. You know? Like, it just doesn't hit you the same. Whereas in Amnesia, it gives you time to kind of sit there and stew into the atmosphere and the environment and the creeps and the cracks, the creaks and the cracks of the castle, right? And really get to understand the location that you're in, and how the game kind of functions in a sense. And then when the monster hits you, not only does it give this really disturbing noise, but it comes from the shadows, dude. You don't even know, right? And so you are in a you are sent into a whirlwind of confusion and panic out of nowhere, right? And it's not a scripted chase sequence. You're not running through a hallway as it's like going rah, 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 you know. You are genuinely on your own. There's no barriers, right? Because that's the thing with the scripted sequences. A lot of the time, they're effective in certain spots, but when they're kind of just spammed everywhere, it's essentially like playing the. It's like have you ever gone bowling and let's say it was either you who wasn't very good at bowling, or there was a kid there who wasn't very good at bowling, or you had a friend who just has never really bowled before, and you still want them to have fun. So you ask the people to pull out the bumpers, right? Now, if you're at a fancy bowling alley, they have like the flag bumpers that kind of go and like shoot up and, you know, prevent the bowling ball from going into the gutters. But if you're at a dope ass bowling alley like I grew up around, they just break out these long black spring tubes and put them in the gutters. Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like you're playing with the bumpers up, you know. So there's not really any threat because you dying is a scripted experience. It's not going to make you do anything crazy. It's not going to make you restart. You're not going to lose anything. It's whatever. But it's also just not that scary, especially because if you've died more than once, then you're not scared anymore. The tension's gone, you know, and then it starts bordering into frustration if you die anymore. So then you just start to not like the section at all. It starts to not feel very fun. But with Amnesia, when you die to an enemy, I think in most cases, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain in most cases, when you actually die, the monster despawns. Like, he's just not there anymore, right? Now, that's kind of weird because typically in like modern horror games, when you die, the monster's still there, it's still guarding you, and you're like, okay, well, now I have to move around him in a different way to get to here, right? It kind of makes you deal with the threat. It doesn't just make the threat go away. Typically, nowadays. So it's kind of odd because you would think that would be kind of intuitive, or that would be more easier or less scary, right? Than just a threat going away. You're like, oh wow, it just baby moded me, right? Like, oh, now I don't have to deal with it. I can just kind of go where I need to go now. But that's the thing, though. The thing that makes that actually more scary is that once it disappears, it's like when you lose a spider, right? When you see a spider on the wall, you go in for the kill, and you miss, or something happens, or it moves too quickly, and then it just falls somewhere, and then it's gone, right? Before, the spider might have been a little bit of a little bit of a scary threat, right? Might give you a little bit of an anxiety, but you know where it is, so you know you can deal with it. But then once it disappears, it's gone. You don't know how to deal with it because you're like, oh my god, is this spider gonna sneak into my room while I'm sleeping and slit my throat, or like I don't know anymore. Is he gonna go, this motherfucker tried to kill me? Well, I'm gonna do him one back. Is he gonna sneak into he's gonna crawl into my mouth while I'm sleeping and control my body? Like you don't know, right? And now, obviously those things aren't realistic, but your mind again is the greatest tool to creating the horrors of the unknown, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you see on your screen, it's what you think in your head is what will freak you out more than anything. Which is why the monster despawning is more terrifying, because you lost the spider. You don't know where it is now. So like now it's not a matter of, okay, how do I maneuver around this gentleman here? It is, when am I going to see him again? Right? Where is he now? I can, okay, cool. I can get to where I need to go, but where is he going to be next? right? Is he going to block me on my way out? So you start coming up with ideas and thinking about it really hard, and that starts to freak you out. So now you're super on edge because you're like, I know there's a threat out here. I don't know where he is or when he's going to be here, but it's something I have to look out for. So that's what I think is terrifying about Amnesia is the subtle ways that it kind of focuses on trying to scare you. Whereas modern horror doesn't seem to do that all that much. It kind of leans into the more uh, kind of plain, flaccid feeling, like ooh, the jump scare, and then chase sequence, and then a puzzle for 30 minutes that is really non-intuitive because it doesn't seem like these guys know how to make puzzle games, you know, and it completely distracts you not because the puzzle's so fun and engaging like typical, right? Because like puzzle games in horror, or like puzzles in horror games go together very well, and that is because it takes your brain into another place where you're not thinking about the horror aspect of the game. You're thinking very critically about how to solve a puzzle. So it makes your brain wander into a different kind of sphere where you're like, okay, how do I get this to here? How do I do this? How do I connect these two things? So that when the puzzle is done, or maybe sometime in between the puzzle, you can get caught off guard really easily because you're locked into something else, right? So it's really easy to rip you out of it and scare the shit out of you because you're not ready for it. But I feel like nowadays, since the puzzles are just not very well done, you know, typically you're taken out of it not because the puzzle's making you think really hard, but because it's so infuriating and annoying. By the time you're done with the puzzle, you don't even care about the horror anymore because you're so upset and mad, and you're thinking about the developers, you're thinking about the people who made this game, and how the fuck like how could they have done this? What is wrong with them? Right? That by the time you get scared, you're like, dude, whatever. Like, yeah, jump at me, scare me. I don't care. It's like you're so frustrated that the scare doesn't even really hit you nearly as hard as it would have as if you were completely locked in, because it takes you out of the atmosphere, it takes you out of the feeling, it takes you out of the vibe. You don't care anymore, And yeah, and it's not that I don't think chase sequences are bad in horror games. I think chasing in horror games can be really good. Like another game that's I think made by the same people. I think Red Barrel's made Amnesia and Outlast, or whatever their name is. I can't remember. So I'll probably throw a fact check up on screen or something. But Outlast is a good, I think, chase horror game because I think it's the ratio of chases in between non-chases, right? Like when you're playing something like Poppy Playtime or Subliminal, and you're just constantly getting chased through hallways and doors and having to mess with the lights or the hands or whatever mechanic it makes you do, it becomes really repetitive and infuriating to play because it's annoying to do the same thing over and over again, especially when, like most people say, it's trial and error. Trial and error makes sense for a game like let's say Dark Souls, right? Where it's a very difficult game and it's a learning curve game where you have to experience things and be punished by them to know not to do them, because it's a very punishing game, right? It's not going to hold your hand, and it's not going to say, hey, heads up, there's a cliff right there, don't jump down it. It's just going to like make you stand there and think, I wonder if I can survive this jump. And then when you can't, you go, okay, now I know for future reference I cannot survive that jump. It's that kind of a game, right? It's trial and error, and you have to figure it out. The reason why that works in a game like Dark Souls is because it can be very satisfying to overcome those trials and errors, and be on top, and be like, hey, I did that. I feel accomplished because I overcame something that took a lot of dedication and time and thinking, right? Because sometimes the trial and error, you can guess the trial and avoid the error, and that feels very good. Especially when you're playing a very punishing video game, being able to just go, you know what, that looks like a trap. I'm gonna avoid that, and then it turns out to be a trap. You think, yep, I'm a smart guy. I'm a smart cookie, and that can be very satisfying. But that's also because a game like Dark Souls is very open. Even though they're linear games, like the old G ones, not like Elden Ring. Obviously, Elden Ring's open world, but the original ones are still very open, and it's very much about how you approach them, right? Which can be immensely satisfying to have your approach be successful, right? But in a chase sequence in a horror game, you don't really. It's not you don't have a choice, right? Your approach is the only approach, right? You don't really have a say in exactly where to go and what to do. You just don't. It is what it is, right? Whatever you're dealt is whatever you have. And that's why it can feel very bad to just die over and over and over and over again, you know. So in Outlast, the chasing is a lot more open, right? Because that's where I was going with that. Is that in the chase sequences are very closed off, whereas in Outlast, typically your chases are very open, right? And it's not like there isn't chase sequences in Outlast. There are, but I think there's a very key fundamental difference between the chase sequences in those games. Is that in Outlast, typically there's only one way to go, and it's very obvious. And that's because having multiple ways to go or a trial and error way of going about it is like useless, right? Like, for example, if you have a path that is just a straight path through like a bunch of winding hallways that leads you to the end, right? Like, let's say it's like an Outlast kind of chase. You run through the whole thing running from something. There's obstacles in your way to slow you down, to create the tension, yada yada. You get to the end though, and you're like, "Wow, that was pretty terrifying. I almost thought I was gonna get got a few times there." Even though you know that the game is designed in such a way that it's fair enough for you to get to the end without dying, because it's to connect you from one sequence to another, typically, in a fluent way. Whereas in Poppy Playtimes, if there's a bunch of other paths, right? It's like, okay, I go. There's like going left on the first, like you approach a split in the path, right? Left or right, and right is the correct way, left is the wrong way, and there's not an indication on whether which way is right or wrong. You don't know. You just have to guess. So you choose left. That's the wrong way. You die. You have to restart. It's like, okay. So then you choose right. This time it was correct. And then there's another fork in the path. And then it's left or right. And this time right is the wrong way and left is the correct way. And you don't know still. And so you choose right and it was the wrong path. And then you die and you restart. And it's like, okay. Right? It's not fun anymore. But let's say if in that same scenario, the player happens to choose the correct path every single time, by the end of it, they're going to feel the same way. They're going to say, wow, that was a crazy chase. You almost got me there. I wonder if both paths took you to the same place or if I just got really lucky. But either way, that was pretty intense. I almost got, right? So the path with zero choices and it was a straight linear hallway is probably going to produce a similar outcome to the guy who guessed all of the right pathways just their first go. Whereas the player who chose the wrong pathways or multiple wrong pathways their first go are probably going to feel very differently. They're going to sit there and be like, that was fucking terrible. Why? Like, why would you do that to me? Why would you give me a choice and then punish me for making a choice? Like, that sucks. Especially in an intense, you got to go motion. You kind of have to think on your feet. It's a 50-50. Right? It's not like there's anything intuitive about it that makes you choose a way, right? So at that point, it is more ideal to just cut all the extra paths off and just make it a linear hallway, because you're going to get the same result as if someone just chose the right path off the get-go, which is a positive result, right? And that avoids the negative result where they end up just not liking your game, hating your game, and also removing all the tension that they feel from playing your game. So it just kind of sours the taste of the game for the rest of the time playing it. The amount of people that I watched play Subliminal, and by halfway through they were just starting to check out. I mean, just the chase sequences and the randomness of the monsters and whatnot, they were just totally checked out because they weren't scared anymore. At first they were like, whoa, this is crazy, this is weird, like I don't really know what's happening here, like there's so much mystery and intrigue. And then once it plays its hand so early off and then repeatedly plays its hand over and over and over and over again, it's not interesting anymore. And so yeah, essentially that's what I was wanting to talk about. I think this time around is I just find horror game design very interesting, and what makes something scary and what doesn't is also very interesting to me. But I also did just think that subliminal game was such a big flounder. Like they could have had a really cool, interesting game that was really creepy and odd, but very immersive and cool looking. And they just ended up throwing it into the slop category, And I can imagine that it must have gone through some type of development hell, or once they made the demo, they were like, well, guys, we don't really know what else to do now. They just completely lost all ideas of what they should do. And that's a shame. Could have been a really cool game. I mean, the graphics were there, the lighting was there, the base premise was there too. The memory meter thing, that seemed really interesting, but did not play out the way that I think most people expected it to. And it played out probably for the worse of the game, which is a shame. So yeah, I'm gonna finish building this up here, and I think that's gonna be pretty much it for this episode. It's nighttime in the game, and I will try to upload more. It's just, life happens and shit sucks, and takes a long time to get stuff out. When you're constantly busy and having to do stuff, because it was also Easter this last week, so I had to see family and stuff like that. But if you want me to talk more about horror games for whatever reason, I don't know how much more I could say about them, but that would be awesome. Tell me what you think. Tell me if there's anything you want me to talk about, and I will. Do all the stuff on the video, like it, subscribe it, whatever the fuck you feel like doing. If you don't feel like doing any of it, then fair enough. If you feel like clicking off the video, fair enough. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.